All right, let's go to the next question. The next question here comes from Logical Q. The question here is, well, the comment here is, honestly, the last 5 years of savings before retirement should probably go into a sequence of returns buffer, high yield savings account, SGUB, which is an ETF, or similar. To be clear, disclaimer, I'm not advocating for any specific investments in this video. I will never advocate for any specific investments through these videos. These are just education, not advice, but this is a truly, truly interesting philosophical question. I don't talk about investments terribly much on YouTube, but I'm going to talk about the principle behind this question. The principle behind this question is, should the final years of retirement saving build cash reserve or some kind of a bucket of defensive funds before, instead of buying more stocks? Okay, here's the fundamental way to think about this, because I think this gets presented very, very inappropriately on the internet and by most advisors, by most educators. And I may not be right, but I'm just going to be transparent about my opinion. My opinion is the following. Every asset allocation has a bucketing element to it. Let me explain what I mean. By the way, I don't love asset allocation, but I'm going to use that as the defining terminology since it's something that's easy for everyone to use as a reference point of agreed upon understanding. Let's say we have a 60% stock, 40% bond allocation, and in your 40% bond allocation, 15% of it is allocated to short-term government bonds. That would be your reserve bucket. Now, the question here is, as you near retirement, should you add more to your reserve bucket? Here's the issue. Let's say you're 5 years from retirement, 5 years from retirement, and you have a 60-40 allocation that is appropriately allocated. And you have some allocation to very short-term stuff like a high-yield savings account, SGUV, 1-year bonds, 2-year treasuries, whatever, right? Are you going to suddenly deploy all of that last 5 years of savings into a secure bucket or a defensive bucket? What happens if you do that? If you do that, all of a sudden you're inflating or changing your allocation. You might arrive at retirement with a 50-50 allocation or a 40-60 allocation. I mean, it really depends on how many dollars you're saving and how many years that runway is. But what you're really doing is you're just inflating the size of your reserve bucket. And you may not need to do that. It depends on your starting allocation. Now, if you're starting with an 100% stock allocation at 55 and you want to retire at 60, maybe there's a case to be made for doing a 5-year targeted savings strategy towards just this defensive bucket idea. But the point of explaining this is actually, it's similar to the last question, which is the first step is diagnostic. What is my current allocation? Is it already defensive enough? And I think a lot of us don't think this way. An asset or an investment strategy is designed to have defensive components to it. So if you already have an investment strategy that is properly constructed, it will have defensive components. And then the question is, am I going to add more and more defense and therefore be too conservative or inappropriately conservative 5 years from now after I do that 5-year kind of bucket of savings and therefore harm my retirement, or just be less optimized? Or am I in a position where my starting point demands that I do that? So the point is, we need to start from a point of reference, and that comes from a diagnostic. So that would, what's the method of doing that? Do a thorough risk audit on your portfolio and find out how much money in your current asset allocation or investment construction is in a format that is low volatility, low standard deviation, low beta, tax friendly, easy to access, and you understand how to access the money. Most of us have that already in an investment portfolio that we have constructed for us. We just don't understand it because it's never been taught to us that way. Part of that comes from what I call the capability versus ability gap. Oftentimes, when we're accumulating, what we're doing is we're just focusing on saving. We're working with or working with professionals or consuming information that is focused around saving, and therefore we don't pay that much attention to how our investments function other than at a total return level or an asset allocation level, neither of which are very good at describing how the asset or the investment mix would function when we're in a decumulation phase or a drawdown phase. But that doesn't mean your assets or your investments are not structured appropriately. It just means that the professionals who are helping you, and I'm not talking poorly about anyone, everyone has specific skills. The professionals who help accumulators often don't think of their investment portfolios or think of communicating this way to their clients because they're working and helping accumulating. And they're trying to do the best job to help you spend less, save more, put it in the right buckets, and end up at retirement with the most raw tinder start the biggest retirement fire, right? To have the most resources to get through retirement. But as you get to retirement, our perspective changes. Now we start worrying about these things. The problem is we worry about them without the right foundation of information. And what we need is we need to have a better understanding of what this process looks like. So my advice is always, or my opinion is always, start with the diagnostic to learn and understand what your actual investment composition is, how would it function, and what portions of the investment mix would you draw from if you had a sequence of returns event, what might you expect from the different strategies that are nested within your total investment strategy, because every investment strategy has multiple strategies or tactics within it, or at least it should. So hopefully that makes sense. I just wanted to share that framework and to be as charitable as possible. Like I mentioned, professionals who give advice, like as an example, I and my business only work with retirees. We would not be a good fit to give someone advice on college savings or college grants, or, I mean, that's just an easy example. That is a avenue of financial planning that is extremely valuable to many people. And we would just not do very well at it because we're not experts and we don't do it often. The same can be said for all elements of specialized financial planning. Now, the thing to do is as you move into a phase that is as consequential as retirement decumulation, retirement tax, retirement income, and all of the consequential decisions around Medicare, Social Security, pre-Medicare health insurance subsidies, all those things, Roth conversions, is work with or get advice or even education off of YouTube or articles. There's great resources from professionals who specialize in that section of life or that phase of life, and know that not everyone's going to be a specialist in everything. And if they advertise themselves as a specialist in everything, they're probably doing themselves and you a disservice. And so that's kind of the framework through which I'd think about this. So to summarize, the question is, last 5 years of savings before retirement, should it go into a sequence of returns buffer? And the answer is, well, it totally depends on your starting point. If you're very conservative already, probably not. If you're very aggressive already, maybe there's a good case for it. You need to know. And then you need to know without making a change, right? So to tie this back to exercise, that is why, and I own a gym with my wife, so exercise is very easy for me to speak towards. If someone comes to my wife, she's a trainer, and says, hey, Amanda, I'd love to run a 7-minute mile. She's not immediately going to build them a training program. First thing she's going to do is say, great, let's go run a test mile and see where you're at. She's going to warm them up, have them do the test mile, note down how fast it is, and then build the plan from there. Same idea here. Do the diagnostic on the portfolio, figure out where to go from there, because you need the diagnostic to determine the course of action. Awesome question. You gave me a great opportunity. I haven't spoken about this a lot on YouTube. It's not so easy to do in a produced video, so this is a great format for that type of thing. But thank you for the question. Logical Q. Real quick, let me show you the exact 3-pillar comprehensive retirement roadmap that takes retirees from uncertainty to peace of mind that less than 1% of retirees actually have in place. Now, I built hundreds of these for retirees, and I can say with a high degree of confidence that these are the 3 pillars every retiree needs to have in place in order to have full confidence that they're not missing anything in their retirement plan. And I broke each of these down by the specific questions. You can see them here that each needs to be answered and the best way to answer them. Now, we've done this across pre-retirees, recent retirees, married couples, single retirees, $1 million portfolios, $10 million portfolios, all the above, and it works. And it's my gift to you today. It's absolutely free. It's in the first link in the description below this video. It's going to say free comprehensive retirement roadmap training. Just click the link, enter your info, and you'll get instant access all for free.